Hey everyone! Today we're going to work on one of the most exciting parts of the journal, which is making the cover. Let's get started. Okay, so for my cover, I have this piece of chipboard. It's pretty sturdy. As you can see, I can't really easily bend it. Here is how thick it is, if you can kind of see that. If you can use like the back of a notepad, that piece that comes on the back, or glue a few pieces of cereal boxes together, or even just a single layer of cereal box, whatever. It depends on how thick you want it to be, how sturdy. So the first thing I'm going to do is measure. I want mine to be 6 by 9. So I'm going to measure 6 across, which should be half of this, and mark it with this pen, if it'll work. Yes, there we go. And then 6 on the other side, about halfway like this. I'm going to try to use this one piece for both the front and back covers, and the spine. So the spine I want to be 2 inches. So I'm going to come in 2 inches from the side here and mark here. 2 inches from the side. Mark here. Okay, so I'm going to connect those 2 lines like so, and then I have this blade. It's one of these retractable ones that snaps off, and you just kind of go along there, and you don't need to be pushing real hard. Just kind of gently drag it along, and it'll take several passes. And then with each new pass, you'll go a little bit deeper. So there's my 2-inch spine. And then these 2 marks show my 6-inch covers. So I just line that up. And cut that the same way. There we go. Yes. Now these need to be 9 tall. Let's see, how tall are they? They're 10 tall currently. So that means I need to knock off 1 inch. Okay. Now, again, same thing. Line it up and cut. Okay. Yay, so there's my 2 cover pieces. Now the spine is still going to be too tall. It needs to be 9 tall as well, so it matches. Awesome! Now we have the 2 covers and the spine. So our next step is to attach these 3 pieces together. To do that, you can use different things. You could use paper, like glue paper strips like this. You could use Tyvek envelopes from like shipping envelopes. I'm using this book cloth tape because I have it. So I'm going to cut off a strip. It's going to be longer than the required length, but then what you want to do is when you put it on there, you don't want to put these so that they're right up against each other, because they need room to be able to move like that, like a book would. So if you use one of these extra pieces and you use that as like a spacer, it needs to have at least as much space as one of those. So I'll use this longer piece. It needs to have at least as much space between as the thickness of the board you're using. So I just use that as a spacer, and then I pull it out, and then I hold it in place, and then kind of put the tape on there. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. The reason I don't like to use paper for this is because over time, as you use the book and as you're opening and closing it, the paper can end up kind of cracking and tearing, and your book can end up sort of trying to fall apart on you. That's just not my preference. Now I'm going to take another piece and put it on this side to reinforce the opposite side. Now, the next step is in these cracks, take a bone folder or like the back of a paintbrush or something and press the tape into those spaces that you left on both sides. So I'll do that side and then flip it over and do this side real good. Make sure the tape's really connecting there good. And then there we go. Looks like a book. So from here, I just cut off this excess. Okay, so our next step will be to figure out how much fabric we need to cover this. So I'm using my quilting ruler here, and I'm going to measure this. This way is 9, and then this way is 14 and about 1/8. So you want to make it 1 inch wider on each side. So that would mean about 16 this way by about 11 this way. 11 this way, 16 this way. So I'm going to get our fabric, and the reason we're making it bigger like that is because when you put the fabric on, you're going to want to fold it over like this. Okay, so this is my fabric. It's the back side. There's the front. So what you want to do is you want to take your cover and kind of decide what you want to be on the actual front of your book. What design? If your fabric isn't the kind where the placement matters, this isn't important, but mine, the placement kind of matters. So you need to remember that this is the back of your book, because when you fold it, this will be the front, right? So whatever's over here underneath this is going to be the front of my book. So I want like this snail. I don't know how well y'all can see. There's a snail on a mushroom. I want that part to be on the front. So this part repeats over here. So that's where I'm going to want my front of my book. So I'm going to put that about like that, I think. Let's see. Yeah, about like that. So then what I'm going to do is take my pen and I'm going to kind of mark the rough edges of this. Like this. And then I can peel that up and see kind of where it is. So from here, what I'm going to want to do is basically measure an extra inch on each side of those markings. So the way my ruler is, you can see it has like an inch here. So I'm going to line this line up with this line that I marked. And then use my rotary cutter that I use for quilting. Cut my fabric. Okay, so now it's time to glue. This is the glue I'm using. It's called Fabri-Tac. It's made for fabric, and unlike regular white glues, this will not, or it shouldn't unless you put a really thick coat, it shouldn't bleed through the fabric and make it where you will see it on the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take some and put it on here, like this. Kind of squiggle worm it around. And then I'm going to use this little paintbrush that I used for gluing stuff and spread it out thin. Gotta work fast with this stuff as it dries quickly. So I'm going to lay it down here. Shoot, got all uneven again. And then I just keep going piece by piece. As you can see, my line is right here. So it's on there crooked, but there's still enough around the edges that it's okay. It'll fold over just fine. So from here, what you want to do is you want to cut these corners at about a 45-degree angle but you want to leave enough space so that there's enough fabric to cover up and around and cover that corner so that that's not sticking out. So leave some there, you know, a little bit there. So I'm going to start with the short sides. Do both the short sides first. Make sure the cover is on good on those edges. Next, fold up the bottom and then the top and really concentrate on those corners. All right, so now it really is looking like a book. This cover, spine, back cover, really nice. I really like it. So now I have a few hardware pieces I want to add. I'm going to add some book corners, and I have this little thing which you put on the spine, and then you can put a charm from this loop. So I have this book binding kit I got on Amazon. Just move the cover out of the way a bit for a minute. And this comes with several different things. It comes with some different waxed threads, needles, a couple bone folders like the one I was using earlier, and it comes with an awl, which is something you will need to pierce the holes to sew your signatures in. So I'm going to use that now. Okay, so it's got like a brad on the back. So I folded that flat, and I'm going to just set it here and see how far down on the spine I want it. And I want it pretty close to the top as it can be. So then I'm just going to measure to the center of it and see how far that is, which is about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to find the center this direction and then 1/2 inch down and make a mark right there. So I don't know how well y'all can see, but I have that little dot right there. Probably can't see it because it's a blue pen on black stuff, but I can see it. So I'm going to take my awl, which is basically this sort of like a mini ice pick with a real sharp point. And sorry, I've got this glue on my hands. I couldn't get it all off really easily. It makes it look like my hands are peeling now. So I'm just going to take that hole, or that point I made, and pierce the hole. Careful not to put my fingers right behind there. Sorry, careful not to put my fingers right there so that I'm going to stab myself. And you just kind of wiggle it through. It might take a minute because this card anyway is kind of thick. So then you have your hole. I don't know how well the hole actually shows up, but it's definitely there. Then I just flatten this back out and thread it through there again. And that'll be a little holder for a tassel or something. So now I'm going to take these pliers, bend them back out, and use the pliers to kind of flatten it down real good so it's real flat on the book. And that's going to be covered up in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to put this book plate on the front. And for this, I'm not really going to measure because it's a lot harder to measure this. I mean, you can, but I definitely don't want to make marks on it. So I'm just going to take it, hold it where I want it, and punch the holes. And then just poke the holes through here. Now, where did those brads go? Okay. So if you want, you can glue this on, which I might actually do. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of this glue on the end of my brush and put it on the back of this. And I'm going to do it very, very little bit because I don't want it seeping out and getting all over the front of the book, the fabric and stuff. Line it back up with those holes and place it down. Then I have some, where did they go? Here they are. These tiny little brads. They don't exactly match color-wise, but they're the closest I've got. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in. And that'll be like securing it on. Okay. And on the inside, they barely peek out, but I'm going to open them up here. And the reason I'm adding these now is because I'm going to put end papers here, and I don't want this showing, like to be poking through the end papers. I want the end papers to cover it. So that's why I'm adding this kind of stuff now. So this is the paper I'm using for the end covers. It's similar to one of the ones I used for the signature cover. It's just a slightly different color, but it's got the script and kind of grungy background. So I know that the inside cover here is 6 by 9. So I want to make it slightly smaller than that. Each piece slightly smaller than that. Okay, so from here you have a couple options. For these would go here like this, but for the spine part you have a couple options. You can either put another piece of the same cardstock, different cardstock, whatever, and these will be placed like this, and you can put it here and just have some of this white showing if you don't mind that. What I want to do though is I'm going to put a piece of muslin fabric right here underneath these papers. So I'm going to glue this in like this, and then I will put the papers on top, and that will kind of look like that. And I think that will look nicer. And then the signatures will be sewn in here, so you won't see this a whole lot. And this might show through this fabric more than the black because it is thinner. The fabric is. And the reason I'm choosing to use fabric and not paper is, again, because if you cover these crease areas with paper, it can cause the paper to kind of split and crack over time as you're opening and closing the book. And I just don't want to deal with that. I want this book, since it's not just going to be a regular journal, it's going to be a book of shadows. I want it to last a real long time. So you can see the glue has seeped through in a couple places. That's okay. Now to glue in these. Okay, so there it is, inside, outside. Now I need to add the book corners. So all I'm going to do is take a tiny bit of glue on the end of my paintbrush and just kind of paint the very tip of the corner. And then I'm going to slide the book corner on there. Slide it into place real good and clamp it on with these pliers. This is another reason why you don't want a bunch of bulk on the corners, because if you're gonna add these corner pieces, having a bunch of bulk there makes it much more difficult to add these on. There we have it, our beautiful completed Book of Shadows cover. Next time I will come back and show you how to sew in the signatures and complete the book, get it all ready and finished and complete, ready to work in. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for the next one to complete the book. Thank you so much. Bye!